Sing that shit. Shit.
Hello and welcome everyone to Funvocacy Part 2. Today is ABI's second live stream of Funvocacy, a word which we have made up very nicely using two words, fun and advocacy. Today we have with us some of the people you would recognize from the first stream. We have Samrat Chaudhary, we have Jaggi, we have Manish, and we have Dhaval. Everyone, please wave because you guys are now known and popular to everyone. We also have with us a special guest today. We have joining us today Dr. Kevin Joseph. He is an MD in medicine, consultant physician, and diabetologist practicing near Cochin in Kerala. Dr. Joseph, would you please tell us something more about yourself?
Oh, hi everyone. So I used to be a smoker and I started vaping about 6 years back, and so far everything's going good.
That's nice. So, Dr. Kevin is one of those people in the medical field who has transitioned and felt the benefit of vaping and is quite supportive of it. We have him joining us today to answer almost any and every medical question which you might want to ask him. He will try his level best to answer as accurately and correctly as possible. This is, of course, keeping in mind that he is one of those few people who does not have a prejudice against vaping. So he will be actually giving you factual, real information, which is something which is sort of rare as of today. With the recent debacle of WHO and the way they've handled the COVID-19, we know that not all people in the health field are unbiased about everything at all times. So getting good, reliable information is a blessing for us as of today. And we are so glad that you're joining us today, Dr. Kevin.
Thank you.
So we're going to also remind everyone, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm going to be reminding everyone today that this is still an interactive session, guys. Please feel free to throw your questions, ask anything which you want to anyone in the panel. Dr. Kevin is, of course, the highlight for tonight with his expertise being brought to the panel. But anybody else is also open for questioning and you can ask us anything. We have consulted our legal teams recently and we have been told that we have to be a little careful about the kind of things we say and speak and show and do and the way we behave in these fields. We've been warned and we're going to be taking care of some precautions now, which brings us to a point where we may or may not be able to answer all of your questions as directly as we wish to answer. So please do excuse us if a question is popped and we are unable to answer it on a public forum. You can reach out to us personally to get our opinions on it personally, but the better path is if you let us be clear and safe so that we can keep fighting this battle as legally and as straightforward as possible. With that, we have a first question coming in from Arun. Arun is asking, Jaggi, what happened to Kanav's hair?
No, see, these are experiments that went wrong. I think, especially when when you're trying to fool around and stuff like that. Don't take shears near your hair, okay? And if you are going to take them, you've got to make sure that it is switched off. Kanav learned the very, very hard way that shears next to the hair, bad idea, bad idea, bad idea.
Absolutely.
So the results there, and I think it's going to take what 2-3 months before he can step out.
At least. Let's just say, guys, that I have found a newfound respect for all barbers all over the world. Their job is not easy.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
So to get today's discussion started, Dr. Kevin, if it's okay with you, can we ask you a very, very intriguing question which has everyone everywhere going on about this? It's in the back of almost everyone's mind, which is, see, nicotine is in replacement therapies, nicotine replacement therapies like chewing gums and all those patches is allowed and is considered okay. But why is it such a taboo or a harsh product when it comes to vaping? Why are we so against nicotine in vapes when we are okay with nicotine being there in other replacement therapies? What are your opinions on this stigma?
See, I think there are two misconceptions associated with that. One is basically the general public. They see a white vapor or smoke coming out of your mouth. They automatically assume it is smoking, and they brand you a smoker, and you are basically a pariah. That is one thing. So people associate all the harmful effects of smoking. They automatically link it as the same thing applies to vaping. Second point is many people mistakenly believe that nicotine is the villain, so to speak, in cigarette smoke. While it is basically, compared to everything, all the other chemicals, nicotine is basically just a harmless item over there. It's the other chemicals that actually do the harm, but nicotine always gets the blame.
Okay, that definitely clears things up a little bit. Thank you. So, but why do we have this prejudice in vaping itself? See, like as you explained, that nicotine itself is not the harmful product. So I understand why in replacement therapies it is not given such a bad name. But why in vaping in specific are they hating on nicotine so much?
Basically, it's, I mean, the people in power and people in the know and who are influential, basically medical, including medical doctors and everyone, they don't take the time to actually go through this and try to find out what it is. And this is a new technology. So if anything goes wrong, the default habit, like all of us, not like a normal human being, the default habit is to just blame it on the new thing. So they just, like I said, they just assume smoking equal to vaping, while the two are a huge world apart.
So, doctor, what as AVI, what can we do to spread this knowledge that nicotine is not the villain and smoking and vaping are two different things? They are not the same thing. As a doctor, please give us advice on how we can take this message to all doctors in the country, maybe globally.
Okay, see, now in my practice, I see chain smokers, basically, laborers who are hooked onto BDs and so on. I would have loved to have the opportunity to give them an alternative, which even works out financially in the long run. But obviously, our hands are tied. Now, thing is, people have this general misconception because of, maybe it's because of the smoke that people blow out, but they feel that this is equal to smoking, so it can cause harm, therefore it should be this one. Now, agreed. Now, definitely, now, in an ideal world, there would be no smoking, there would be, everyone would be rich, there would be no COVID. But this is not the ideal world. People who are smokers, when they are looking for a better alternative, this is there, out there. It's, people just have to know about it and pick it up. At least it would reduce the harm that, instead of one vape, if they smoked a cigarette, you compare the harms involved, vaping would be the much safer way out. And maybe AVA can, spread, help to spread that message among the normal common people, so they get the idea.
Yeah, just to add what Dr. Kevin, what I've seen in the medical field is there's some resistance all the time to uh, acknowledge new technologies or new changes in the field. I don't know if it stems from people not liking that change, or whether they want to see more uh, tests in the field, in the real world, to better understand what the side effects are or what other effects are. And I think that is why there is this some resistance. I want, I want to call out that there could be, because of that. If there's a new therapy introduced, I'm not saying it is entirely vaping, but it could be something entirely in the medical field. Uh, i i would say that many people would be a little apprehensive, many doctors would be a little apprehensive at first, until they realize that many other doctors are doing it in my field, and maybe I should try it out, and it helps and whatnot. There would be more benefits than more harm about it. Would that be correct? uh,
uh,
To which one
yeah,
thing I would
and Yeah.
One thing I would like to add
I would
from what
say that
Dhaval said. Sorry, Dr.
many
Kevin.
people would be a
I'll
little apprehensive.
just
Many
make a quick
doctors would be a
point.
little
You know
apprehensive at
that
first
thing
until they
about
realize that
there
many
being
other doctors are
resistance
doing it in
to
my
anything,
field, and
to new
maybe I should try it
technologies or
out,
new
and
therapies.
it helps and
Now compare
whatnot. There
that to
would be
what's happening in this
more
COVID treatment.
benefits
World
than
over, they
more
are
harm
health bodies are
about it.
recommending every
Would
new
that be
thing
correct?
with very
Uh,
anecdotal and
Would
based on
yeah,
very small
and
studies.
yeah,
So I don't think it's
one thing I
entirely
would like to
true
add
from
I
what
would say
Dhaval said. Sorry, Dr.
many
Kevin.
people would be a little
That
apprehensive.
justification,
Many
you
doctors
know, when
would
it
be a little
comes to
apprehensive at
that
first
thing
until they
about
realize that
being
many other doctors
resistance.
are
There are
doing
a
it
lot
in
of
my field,
RCTs.
and
There's like
maybe I
good
should try it
credible
out, and
research coming from
it
different
helps
sources.
and
Now
whatnot.
compare
There
that
would
to
be
what's happening, which shows that there is harm
benefits
reduction. Yet
than
there is some sort of
more harm.
resistance to accept this linked more to morality of the issue than the science. One thing I would like to add
I would
tobacco
say
harm
that
reduction,
many
unfortunately,
people
is
would be a
not
little
being seen
apprehensive. Many
as a
doctors would be a little
scientific subject, but it's being seen through the prism of morality. And that's creating a problem, because if that wasn't the case, then you wouldn't have advisories. Even ICMR has put out advisories on hydrochloric resistance to accept this, and we now find out that it may not be that complex yet, and it is hard to link more to morality of the issue. The advisory was also based on two small studies, right? Unfortunately, 20 and 50 participants. This is scientific subject. Dr. Kevin, seen it through the prism of
yeah.
morality, and that's creating a problem, because if that wasn't
I
the
can't hear
case,
you.
then you wouldn't have advisories. Even ICMR has put out advisories on
We seem to be
hydrochloric
experiencing
resistance.
some kind of
No, we can hear you, Dr. Kevin. Go on.
no.
Yeah, yeah.
The YouTube chat is saying that they seem to be not able to hear us or see us. So we're gonna take a
Two
moment
small studies, right?
to just check if
Unfortunately,
everything
20
is
and
okay.
50
Facebook
participants. This
looks
is
clean and
scientific
working.
subject.
No, no, I can
Dr.
see on
Kevin, seen it through
YouTube.
the prism of
Yeah.
You got to refresh the
and that's
screen
creating a
once.
problem, because if that wasn't
I
the
can't hear
case,
you.
then you wouldn't
So
have
for all those who are experiencing problem on
advisories. Even
YouTube, no,
Yeah, yeah.
the YouTube chat is saying that they seem to be not able to hear us or see us. So we're gonna take a
two
moment
small studies, right?
to just check.
Refresh the
And that's
screen
creating a
once.
problem, because if that
I
wasn't the
can't hear
case,
you.
then you wouldn't
So
have
for all those who
ICMR has put out advisories
we seem to be experiencing some kind of
No, we can hear you, Dr. Kevin. Go.
I can't hear you.
so for all those who
It's visible on YouTube. Those people who can't see should refresh their screen, because I think it is, if it's not working for one or two people, they need to refresh it. Those people who can't see should. Okay, carry on. Dr. Kevin, go on.
The morality has a big aspect to it because see, it's a dual situation. In effect, they're telling the world that I was a smoker in the past, and that is a huge statement that takes a lot of courage for someone to just switch over and actually come out in the open, so to speak. They don't look and instantly, they associate all the stigma associated with being a smoker. He can't control himself. He doesn't have willpower, so to speak, and everything. Maybe that is also a strong reason and point.
And I strongly suspect that the skewed research public, or general public, and there could be doctors who are just getting to know what vaping is or even THR is, they're confusing everybody, or most of the people.
See,
We
now,
get articles such as vaping increases the rate of heart attack, and then when we dig deeper, it is found that uh, the rate is much lower than smoking is, or it was tested on mice, for example, but not on humans, or it was just a lab experiment with no real world connections or settings involved.
Uh, I mean, one two thing that I thought about that was, basically now, see, doctors generally are busy people. They hardly get the time. So what happens is you carry forward this level of activity over years that becomes decades. And what happens is you hardly get the time to you read up, on new technology. So supposing, let's say a busy doctor gets a patient who asks him about an electronic cigarette. Then at the first instant he will and he'll probably go home, maybe take some time, and then first step what they do is, what does the local government, let's say the Indian government or the NCI, the medical council, what do they say, or the IMA, what do they say about vaping? Now, in our current scenario, 80% of doctors with their research, they stop over there. They go like, finished. It's bad. It's bad. It's the worst thing in the world. Now it takes a little bit of extra effort to go beyond that and see what is the actual risk. There are conflicting reports from most notably from the US and other countries, while UK has been a staunch supporter throughout the years, from the beginning, in between, and even now. And then you're confused. Which one do you actually follow? Maybe that's what happens in most of the cases.
I think the other problem is also that we end up talking to, say, for example, you have a smoking issue, you end up talking to your cardiologist, or diabetologist, so on. No one really talks to de-addiction, doctors who focus on de-addiction therapies and so on and so forth. I guess that's a resource that gets missed ever so often, So specifically at harm reduction therapies, okay, we all used to smoke for the nicotine and we were dying because of the tar. All of us were, that was our problem. Now we have found a safer way uh, for our nicotine dependence, to take care of our nicotine dependence. And that's what it really is all about. Somewhere along the line, I think what we are missing is not talking to people who focus on de-addiction therapies, because I think that's where the problem is. I don't know, Doc, do you agree with that one, or how is that?
There is a bit of a truth, because see, one thing is de-addiction in the normal course, what it normally means is basically people think it's either alcohol or other drugs, IV drugs or something. And de-addiction treatment goes under expertise. Now you can imagine a smoker comes to me and he says he wants to stop smoking. And I say, okay, why don't you go visit the psychiatrist? They'll be like, yeah, sure, I'll think about it and then I'll let you know. That'll be the last thing I hear of the people. So
Right.
in practical terms, what happens is all non-smoking or stop smoking advice ends up being given either by the primary physician whom they consult, or maybe the pulmonologist or the cardiologist, as in the relevant specialties. So the lack of awareness on their part does have a major role.
Right.
But how is ABI can be, for example, talk to the medical profession or the thing? How does that one work, especially considering that most of this is indeed, government controlled and so on and so forth? I'm sure there's a lot of politics involved even in such associations. So how does one have breakthrough, especially when all of this is perpetually biased?
No, see, you can't place a moratorium on information. You can always give them the information, tell them to be open-minded about it, read about it. And see, one thing in favor is most doctors, during their training, even after, they are trained to look up to the UK, because the NHS is the world's best health service. So people are, subconsciously they look up to UK as the standard. You see, consultant, every high flying consultant in every major hospital is definitely will be having a UK degree. So in that way, they actually are a bit tilted. So you tell them that the NHS actually supports this and everything, they're more likely to listen to you.
I would like to interrupt here and take a little bit of time. Some feedback we had got from the earlier Funvocacy was that all the content being is not public friendly. So थोड़ी बातें हम लोगों को हिंदी में भी करनी चाहिए. तो अभी तक जो बातचीत हुई है, मैं थोड़ा सा हिंदी में बोल देना चाहूंगा कि प्रश्न ये था, निकोटीन कई तरह से इसका सेवन लोग करते हैं सिगरेट के अलावा. तो निकोटीन पैच, निकोटीन च्युइंगम वगैरह को सेफ माना जाता है. इनको सरकार ने अनुमति दी है, लेकिन वेपिंग को बैन कर दिया है, तो इसका क्या कारण है? निकोटीन तो दोनों में बराबर से समान ही है, एक ही निकोटीन से दोनों बनते हैं. तो डॉक्टर का कहना यह है कि एक तो वेप से जो भाप निकलती है या हमारे मुंह से जो धुएं जैसा तो बादल सा निकलता है, उसके कारण लोगों को लगता है कि धूम्रपान और वेपिंग दोनों एक ही तरह की चीज है. तो दिखने में दोनों एक जैसी है तो शायद दोनों का नुकसान भी एक जैसा ही हो। और दूसरा ये है कि जो डॉक्टर वगैरह हैं वो इतने व्यस्त लोग हैं कि वो लेटेस्ट चीजों को इतना ध्यान से नहीं पढ़ते हैं, और उनको जो संक्षिप्त जानकारी सरकार की तरफ से या अखबार वगैरह में मिलती है उसी के आधार पर वो अपना निर्णय बना अपना एक विचारधारा उनकी तैयार हो जाती है, जिसके ऊपर बेस करके वो अपना लोगों को बताते रहते हैं। तो यहाँ पर इस समय जरूरत इस चीज की है कि जानकारी को और फैलाया जाए। एवीआई इसमें एक प्रमुख भूमिका निभा सकती है। जानकारी को अगर फैलाया जाए जनसाधारण के लिए भी और मेडिकल जो डॉक्टर वगैरह हैं उनके लिए भी, तो इससे शायद आने वाले दिनों में परिस्थिति में सुधार हो। इंग्लैंड और अन्य देशों में जहाँ अच्छा शोध हो रहा है उस शोध के को भी हम लोग यहाँ पर कर सकते हैं। यहाँ पर को और ज्यादा उसका प्रचार किया जाना चाहिए। अपने देश में कुछ खास शोध हो रहा नहीं।
At this moment, I'd like to stop the panel for a moment. We have a question from somebody. Neeta is asking on YouTube, why did they ban e-cigarettes on planes? This is something which we've not discussed. We've discussed that they have banned it and what we can and should do about it. But why would they have done something like this? Why would they ban e-cigarettes on planes? Anyone wants to take this question? On that note, Dhaval points out that the government has also banned research on vaping and tobacco harm reduction overall. Dhaval, you seem to be totally on top of this topic. Why don't you answer this one?
All right. So the flight ban was actually a fallout on the overall vaping ban in India. So when the vape ban bill or became law, there was a question. There was a section in there about transport, uh, and transport is banned, and that is why there was this circular that says you cannot carry uh, vape devices in flights, and that is a fallout of that. That even if it's personal usage, you cannot carry it in flights, and you would have to drop it off with the security at the airport.
Dhaval, you want to give it a shot in Hindi also?
I'll try. So जब सरकार ने ये वेपिंग बंद कर दिया तो वो जो नियम उन्होंने बनाया उसमें ऐसे था कि तुम लोग उसको ट्रांसपोर्ट नहीं कर सकते हो, ट्रांसपोर्ट पे भी पाबंदी लगाए थे। तो उसके वजह से जो एयरलाइन जो ये मिनिस्ट्री सिविल एविएशन की जो मिनिस्ट्री है, उन्होंने कहा कि कौन से भी फ्लाइट में, कौन से भी विमान में आप ई सिगरेट लेके नहीं जा सकते। तो वो चाहे चाहे मेरा खुद का हो या कमर्शियल यूज के लिए हो, और उसके वजह से सबका बंद हो गया और अभी वो जमा करना पड़ता है सिक्योरिटी वालों के पास। Is that good enough?
And जब आप उनको जमा करते हो तो वो उसके साथ क्या करते हैं हमें कोई आइडिया नहीं।
Yeah.
वो रात को अकेले उसके साथ होते हैं और हम सोचना भी नहीं चाहते वो कैसी कैसी चीजें करते हैं उनके साथ।
I'll just like to add a few points to that. So the government banned electronic nicotine delivery systems ends in December 2019. It actually banned it in September by bringing in an ordinance. And usually an ordinance is brought in when there is extreme urgency. So the government said that there is, kids are dying on the streets and we need to act very urgently and we need to quickly ban this and nip the evil in the bud. And that is the justification for an ordinance, because usually what happens is when a new law is made, it is first presented in parliament, it's deliberated in parliament, and then it is passed. However, in this case, they rushed through the entire thing, which was the cabinet sort of approved the ban, and then it was enforced after the president's approval. It is only a few months later that they brought it in parliament and it was debated, because an ordinance cannot become has a force for only 6 months, so it has to be debated in parliament. However, the ban was already in force. Now the question before the parliament was to ratify or not ratify. So the nature of the debate changes when the ordinance is already passed. And this was brought up by many members, opposition members in parliament. In fact, 60 amendments to the bill were proposed and none of which were accepted, and the bill was passed into law. So this is how hastily the whole thing was done. What happened after that was that they could not show or explain to the public why this urgency, because no major arrests were made, no people were caught, children are dying on the street. Logic could not be shown to the public. So what was the reasoning for the ban? This caught the government in a corner. Now, Dhawal put it correctly that transport in the ordinance is banned. However, very specific assurances were given by the health minister and the health ministry that consumption or the users or consumers of electronic, which Dhawal was mentioning, that transport is banned. But transport for personal use should ideally have been excluded. So there's no legal basis for the ban. It is a misinterpretation of law for the ban, which is why it has been challenged by us in Karnataka High Court, and it should come up for hearing soon.
I do have a lot of questions for Dr. Kevin, but before we head to annoy Dr. Kevin again, we on the YouTube chat. Like, I can't ignore Garfield. I love. As I'm transporting the vape across the city, Garfield, no, that is not true. You are not breaking the law if you are carrying your vape mod. So you can carry your vape mod with you wherever you're going, just not in planes. If I'm wrong, please somebody let me know. But if I'm correct,
Yeah,
everyone
well,
is saying,
see, even in plane,
yeah,
it's a violation of your right to for personal consumption. It on yourself while you are moving from point A to point B is also allowed. So what the government or the DGCA specifically in this case has done is misuse that law or misinterpreted that law to obviously now go after consumers, which it specifically assured it will not do.
See, that's the definition, and that's how transport itself is called. I think we had spoken about this last time as well. It's just that's reality.
since we have Dr. Kevin with us today, Dr. Kevin, can you elaborate? Is there in your knowledge
from one person to another? You don't get infections out of thin air, essentially. So, and especially tuberculosis and respiratory infections, they are spread by droplets. Now, supposing the one way that you could get TB while vaping is if you share your vape with a person who has tuberculosis, then yeah, definitely you will get tuberculosis. Now, another thing is people smoking has an increased risk of tuberculosis. Therefore, vaping also has an increased risk of tuberculosis. No, because there are various studies, but smoking has an increased risk of tuberculosis because of two main things. One is the lung damage, the permanent lung damage that it actually causes, and certain chemical changes that happen in the lung due to the smoke, not seen when you vape. So the probability or chance of getting tuberculosis while vaping is extremely low, not really more than how the person next to you who doesn't vape will get. Probably roughly both will have the same percentage. Then another third thing is many studies are biased in a way because studies done on vapors, most of the vapors have been previous smokers and that too for decades together. So you can't, basically you have a whole big chunk and then you add a little bit of vaping on top and you get all the side effects of smoking. You can't blame vaping for that. So to put in a simple answer, it's nearly impossible to get tuberculosis purely from vaping.
Yeah, and that's a very good point that Dr. Kevin brought up. In many research cases, it has always been found that there are whatever effects that were seen, and especially I'm talking about the negative studies, those were Dr. Kevin brought up. In all probability, the side effects of the years of smoking these patients had to go through, and that is never considered in these studies at all.
So to ask you a direct question, Dr. Kevin, from smoking you can get TB, from vaping it's unlikely that you will get TB. Is that correct?
The chances are less. As in if the person, see, basically imagine two graphs, person is standing at point A, if he had continued smoking and if he had switched over to vaping, the chances by switching over to vaping are very much reduced as compared to if he had continued smoking normal conventional cigarettes.
That is good. So there is overall harm reduction to you, and then there is an overall benefit in switching if you cannot quit completely.
Exactly. It's never too late.
I have friends with asthma who haven't used inhaler since vaping. That's Neeta not posing a question, but actually stating a fact. That's good to know. That's great news that people who've switched to vaping have their health has improved, and we're all of us over here because we've all experienced it ourselves.
Were they
Like,
smokers before?
yes, she says no, she's not added that. Neeta, can you tell us, were they smokers before they switched to vaping? I'll get back to you as soon as Neeta replies, because there's going to be a 20-second delay as to when she hears me also. Yes,
Hey,
she
Kanav,
says yes, of course.
See,
Kanav,
there,
does it also take 20
that
seconds for
that's
you
the
to hear
demonstrable
yourself?
health effect right there.
Yep. So Ajay wants to know, I always thought TB was bacteria and anyone could get it. Got nothing to do with smoking. Cancer, heart issues, COPD may be smoke related.
No, see, tuberculosis is an infection. It is caused by a bacterium. Now, thing is, a smoker's lung, basically, two things, a long time smoke, especially long time. Now, you smoke one cigarette today, you're not at higher risk of getting tuberculosis. But you've been smoking for decades together. Parts of your lung, they lose their elasticity, so to speak. They become very rigid. And those rigid areas become areas where these bacteria can grow. That is one major reason how smoking can predispose to tuberculosis. And then the other changes, the inflammatory changes that happen in the lung. So that is how tuberculosis can be is associated more with smokers than with non-smokers.
Right.
Is
That's
this something
interesting.
which is also true for COVID, or we don't know enough yet?
Uh, it's, I mean, okay. Apart from the permanent lung damage, because the mode of spread, it is by a droplet. So theoretically, it should be the same because yeah, that's why the whole reason of mask, social distance, because respiratory droplets should not spread from one person to another. And even the FDA recent, I mean, around two, that is one of the beefs I have with the FDA because they always seem to jump the gun without reading what actually happens. First, around 2 3 weeks back, they said COVID, vapors are at increased risk of having COVID. Then 2 3 days back, they said they don't have any proof for it.
That seems to be the case across the aisle when it comes to vaping. That there is a lot of jumping of the gun and pronouncing risks where there is not enough evidence to back it. I mean, along with the US FDA, the Norwegian Health Authority has also removed vaping from the list of risk factors. But that hasn't stopped some others from rushing to make a link when there is not enough evidence. Now, and I don't understand this dichotomy. That on one hand, you will not accept 10 years of evidence, and on the second hand, you will rush to claim something without evidence. So don't they see that there is something not, lining up here?
Actually,
I mean, as a
Samrat,
medical professional, why do you think this happens? Because uh, uh, even in India, for the ICMR, the Indian Medical Association, have not put out statements which are uh, grounded firmly in science. And why do you think this is happening, not just in India, but across medical bodies, that they are taking hardline positions without there being enough evidence or even evidence to the contrary?
Okay, see, COVID is a special issue because it's an emergency. It's like it's an international emergency. It's a pandemic. So people are desperate. I mean, the across our groups, we are getting trials of anti-psychotic medications that seem to be effective, anti-malarial drugs, anti-rheumatoid arthritis drugs, antibiotics, which theoretically should have no effect for a viral infection. We're getting all these trials which are in place for as a possible cure for COVID. Now, basically, people are desperate. And another thing is, for a full phase study to come out, and it takes months, if not at least years. Now, in this kind of an emergency, we really can't afford the time. So, anything that seems promising, or that at least in other words has no harm, significant harm, then people might be thinking, okay, why not try that? If there might be some doubtful benefit, at least, benefit of the doubt, why not give it and see? If they do recover, well and good. Right now, this is a phase where medical professionals and medical bodies around the world are essentially desperate to find something to just stop this infection in its tracks.
But why don't we see that desperation for solving the tobacco problem? There are like 8 million people dying every year from it. But for that, they want 20-year studies before they actually recommend a solution which has enough anecdotal evidence, which means 42 million people have transitioned. They have enough scientific evidence. There are RCTs, randomized controlled trials. There are studies happening across the world which are showing significant harm reduction, but that they're not accepting. So, I mean, I'm not being able to understand, uh, why there's such difference in approaches.
See, one thing I can say is, it till around, let's say, I think 2019 June, I think everything was fine. People were okay, vaping was fine, everything was okay. And then some people in the US, they started smoking cannabis inside this and THC coils, and then the whole list of things. Then what happened was, basically the whole blame went to vaping. Even after the FDA, which also said, we made a mistake. It is not the vaping as such. It is THC coils that cause the problem. But the damage was done. Once something bad happens, everyone basically just jumped onto the bandwagon. And you go like, even we knew this also, even we knew. Then where were they all these years? Because, e- and that's another reason why I respect the UK and the NHS. They don't say something out of the gun. They think, they make a study, they take years, and then they publish it. And their last study, which was done in 2018, before the whole world boiled over, they said vaping is safe. It is at least 97% safer than smoking, and it is to be recommended in people who wish to reduce their harm. Most of the times, you can say, governments, medical bodies, they act emotionally rather than rationally and thinking it through.
I I'm going to totally do weird things at this moment, and I'm sorry for that. This is going to be non-medical now. Like nothing medical or healthy is going to happen now. But somebody brought it up that I am being unable to sleep in the lockdown. Is it because I'm vaping too much? No, it's the lockdown. You're not getting any mental or physical exercise whatsoever. You're used to running around, struggling, being stuck in red light, abusing the person who's cutting the red light, driving, fighting just to get to work so you can fight with the world over there to make some money, and then coming back to fight with somebody or the other back at home. And now suddenly it's all silence. Telemarketers aren't calling you and saying, "Hello, sir, please, hello." And that's an awkward situation to be in. Your mind is not used to so much relaxation, and that is the reason you're not being able to sleep. Go out, take a jog. No, don't do that. Please stay inside and stay safe. I did not say go out. Just the point being that it is, you need to have some form of exercise, and because you have to stay in your house, you need to exercise at home. Exercise your mind and your body. You will be tired, you'll sleep better. Don't get confused. Vaping is not the thing which is keeping you awake right now. You might vape 10% more or 20% more or less than what you do normally, and that's it. Your variation can't be more than that. Your body is used to it, because if you're vaping, you're anyways consuming far less nicotine than you were when you were smoking. So add some form of workout. I'm so sorry. I found this question, it got discussed in the chats, and I just had to totally give my 2 cents on it. And that's all it is, my 2 cents. it is literally worth 2 cents. You find somebody with medical experience to confirm, then you can take it. But for me, it's worth 2 cents, but that's what I feel it is.
I pick
ये
up
बॉडी
on
को इतनी आराम की आदत नहीं है, इसलिए सर नींद नहीं आती.
I just pick up a book on economics or statistics. I fall asleep in 5 minutes, man. I'd recommend everyone to try it.
You should try a medical textbook.
That as well, I guess.
Vishalappa suggests a 20-minute peak cardio for everyone. I can't do 20-minute peak cardio. I'll end up sleeping for 2 days. But in all fairness, I would like everyone to know that after the first 10 days of lockdown, I was sleeping for 2 hours and waking up for 5 hours, followed by sleep for 2 hours and then being up for 5 hours. It did screw with my mind and my routine also. And for kuch dinon baad I realized that I need to do something about it. I started doing some exercise. That's why I have in my room these really heavy dumbbells because I've been doing some workout. And then I sleep better. So you guys want to do something like that too now?
It's amazing that you have the dumbbells right next to your desk.
Just coincidence. Just coincidence.
Hey, he's at the chair the whole day.
Dr. Kevin actually has it right. I'm actually sitting here and I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, watching a TV show over here. And then you'll see me go 1, 2, 3, and then I'll watch some aerobics video and I'll be like, nah, that's too much. Chair and hands is enough. And YouTube knows me. See, YouTube is not showing me aerobics and all. YouTube is showing me Zomato ad. See, order pizza. अब सिर्फ 30 मिनट में आपको 150 रुपए में मिलेगा. Sorry, I'm going to control the voice. Come back. Calm down.
Kanav.
Yes.
Yeah, I want 2 minutes. One,
Yes.
there's a question from Soham Rantek who wants to know that if it's safe to vape expired e-liquid.
You are the best person to answer that.
My personal opinion, the expiry date that is written on the e-liquid bottle, 1 year or 2 years generally somewhere between 1 year and 2 years, it's too conservative. But this comes with a rider. One, after you open the bottle, after you have broken the seal of the bottle, how long have you kept it and in what condition? If you have kept it if you've kept it tightly closed at all times and you have not taken it out in your car or not left it near the window, it's safe to vape for a few months. If the bottle is sealed, it's safe to vape even beyond the expiry date if it has been stored properly in the meanwhile. One thing to look out for is that the color, it may be slightly darker than a fresh bottle, but it should not be drastically different. Second is, if you know the smell of that particular e-juice, normal smell, if it's off, you'll know. So be careful, store it well, but yes, you can vape it to a certain point after the expiry date also. It's not indefinite, but then the expiry date is not etched in stone. And another thing I want to share with everybody is that it's been a few months, more than 7 months since the ban is in force in India. AVI is preparing a questionnaire and going to do a survey very shortly, and to assess the impact of the ban on the vapers as well as non-vapers, general public. This is a study which is going to be done, and it is in collaboration with Dr. Sri Sucharita, who is a very renowned researcher, Chennai-based, and AVI is going to do the study. So the questionnaire is almost final, and it will probably be rolled out in less than a week.
But why, Manish? Why would I, as an individual, share my private information with AVI? Why would I willingly tell you everything?
It's not private information. It's just your opinion and usage patterns that we want without attaching a name to it, because we want to gather this data of how the ban has affected people vapors, non-vapors, their family members, their near and dear ones? What has been the effect of the ban? Is it actually having the effect that the government intended, or is it having a different effect? This is very important to know and also communicate to the general public as well as to the government.
But I am slightly paranoid about my security. What if you sell my information to somebody? I want to know who has access to this information.
AVI has access to the answers that you give, not your personal information. It will not be tied to you. It is information coming from somebody who has taken the survey.
Okay, so this is completely safe and it will help AVI to better form studies so that they can fight this ban?
Fight this ban, yes. Also to take more informed decisions of what path to follow.
So you are saying people sitting everywhere can help AVI by just filling that questionnaire and nothing else? That is also them joining the cause?
Yes, it is one small step which can go a long way in our efforts.
I'm going to go do my form just now. I think you all should do the same. I don't have an outro. I would have done it right now.
Yeah. So it will be rolled out very shortly, in less than a week.
Yes, but we please, everyone, do take time, fill it up, and share it with anyone and everyone you know who can fill it up. All these small things help us a long way. Help us in a long way. Something like that. You get the point. Don't look at me like that.
Jaggi, you have been silent for too long. Please speak up.
Jaggi last time cracked a few jokes. Then he said, I'm going to wear my helmet and go up. He thought he'll be safe. Little did he know, baseball bat was ready.
And yeah, so you see,
he's been domesticated. Behind, right? I think that his wife saw it, right? That is the problem somewhere.
No, I was just listening to Kanav and being being an enthused cutlet. That was a good cheer. No, but I agree. Look, everybody has to put in their effort here. Okay, we can't understand everything with 15, 20 of us trying to figure out based on what our patterns are and what our usage levels are and so on. We need to reach out to the people who are vapers, who are those who are affected by this ban, people who have been smoking, who have been considering switching, people who were vapers and who have unfortunately needed to move to other forms of tobacco, perhaps even to get their nicotine fix. Right now, with even the cigarette shops and things like that all shut out, I wonder what you people are doing, and it is a cause of concern, and it is something that we would like to know, because I think this is the kind of feedback that could actually add value to the kind of efforts that we are putting forward and what we are trying to take. This is a serious meeting because we were told that this is supposed to be family friendly, and so family friendly it is. But no, I would also like family to fill this up, okay, and perhaps even your the guy who was selling you cigarettes previously, take it in a burger. Can you fill this form for us? I would like to know his response as well. Maybe the cigarette shop owner would have another opinion, but we really do need this. Looking for your height, your weight, your number of teeth you have, and so on. I mean, those are all private. You can keep those.
31. I have 31.
Yeah, okay. There you go. That one molar is missing, right? That wisdom never came.
It just fell off on its own.
Yeah. That wisdom never turned up. I mean, it knew something was missing there.
Yeah, it just said, I've had it. Enough of this guy. I'm done. I'm going. Bye.
The tooth fairy must have given you a hit on your head, right?
Probably. At this point, I would like to annoy Dr. Kevin a little bit once again. Dr. Kevin, are you okay to be annoyed a little more?
Does he have a choice?
Yeah, of course. He just has to press a button and run. I can't go chasing after him right now in the lockdown. Dr. Kevin, what is the best joke you've heard? No, I'm joking. That's not what the question is. I'm sorry. The question is vaping indoor and health hazards of secondhand vapor. See, this is something which we guys have been discussing, and we want to know what you feel about it. We is secondhand smoking is bad. It's a globally known concept. And over here, I would request Kevin, Manish, and Samrat, everyone to participate in this discussion. It's a small discussion. I want all of you to have. I would have asked Samrat to speak about it in a monologue, which he's very good at evidently. But if I tell Samrat, then I am like losing a point and I'm going to get punished or something. Samrat, stop doing that thing. I can see you. So, so it's going to be a discussion. I want Dr. Kevin to have this discussion with all of you about secondhand vape smoke in a room. If I'm vaping and somebody's sitting next to me.
Okay, now there was a study that, like I said, the study that I mentioned before in 2018, which the NHS they released. In that one, they said that so far, I mean, all medical studies they come up with a rider called so far because they don't want to get a liability in the future. But whatever. In that one, it is clearly mentioned that second-hand vape doesn't have any harmful effects. That's point number one. Second thing is, like I said, with vaping, the one point of view always to keep in mind is instead of vaping, if he was smoking, what would have been the difference? Now, like in this example that he just gave, if a person sitting in the room and was vaping, was smoking, the effect that I would have on my lung versus if he was vaping and the effect it would have had on my lung, two entirely different poles apart. And the study that I mentioned before, no harmful effects from second-hand vape.
Right. So secondhand vaping, according to, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to do an awkward thing. Anyone who has that small speaker from the Amazon website around you might want to mute your speakers for a moment because this is going to wake up that speaker. Alexa, light intensity 100%. Yes, sorry. So we have Aniruddha asking us question. Dr. Kevin, I'm sorry, but we get your point that secondhand vapor smoke is being in studies shown to not be harmful, if I'm not mistaken. So that is excellent. Aniruddha has asked a question which is interesting. What do we think about Trump's pullback from further financing WHO, which is not who let the dogs out for a WHO, but World Health Organization. I really hope I got that correct. It would be really embarrassing if I got it wrong on like live stream. So I think it's a damn good idea. WHO, we don't need intelligent experts to come and tell us WHO goofed up over here. I'm not even a doctor and I'm going to tell you WHO goofed up. They goofed up right now. They goofed up in the past when they said vaping is really, really bad. And we really don't need anyone else to pinpoint that. I'm so glad at least USA has woken up and realized that WHO is goofing things up and they're pulling back. But I'm going to leave it to the diplomats to speak further. Diplomats.
I will quickly take 2 minutes on this, and then others please add in. So WHO goofed up from the start, right? I mean, they took China at face value. They towed the Chinese line. They were very reluctant to declare it a pandemic. I mean, the time that they finally declared it a pandemic was March 11 or 12, which was way too late. Had they declared it earlier, governments would have acted sooner, would have, implemented social distancing and flight
By
travel.
the time they declared it, it was obvious to the rest of the world.
Yeah, I mean, travel bans were already in place widely before that. So they caught on to the game much later when it became inevitable. But that is not the role WHO was supposed to play. The role it was supposed to play was to prevent or save the world from a pandemic like this one.
Watchdog.
And it came because it appeared too close to China. And I think that allegation holds water, not just because Trump is saying it, but because there are facts which are pointing in that direction. There's also a background to Tedros. So Tedros is the first chief of WHO in its 72-year history who's not a doctor. He's a politician. He was a minister of health in Ethiopia for a while, at which time he was accused of suppressing 3 cholera outbreaks, not one, but 3 cholera outbreaks. He did not declare not to WHO, not to the world, and they tried to suppress it. Then he was a minister of external affairs. So that's his qualification, and that's, I think, did play a part in him not understanding what how big a problem this could be. In 2003, when SARS happened, WHO did play a good role. It went out and issued warnings, declared it a pandemic. So it's not that WHO has not been able to play a good role in a pandemic earlier, but it has some structural problems. For example, WHO is headquartered in Geneva, and it has 6 regional hubs across the world. In Southeast Asia, we have the regional hub in Delhi. Now, these regional hubs are not directly answerable to the center, to Geneva, and they're autonomous, which means they can make independent calls. What this does is that it delays information by the time it gets processed by the center. A quick example is the Zika virus outbreak, and the America Center acted independently on putting out information about it, and the Geneva Center headquarters didn't even know what was going on. So there are fundamental problems with WHO, and there is an urgent need to restructure it and bring it back to its core mission. A very quick fact is that over 90% of Global Health Agency, it is tied for polio programs. It is like for this tobacco control, it has a huge amount of money. And this money is coming from private donors. So WHO doesn't have its own voice. It's too dependent on people who are funding it, and a lot of these funders are private players, like Melinda Gates Foundation and the Bloomberg Philanthropies and a few others. So WHO, the reckoning for WHO, Trump is doing it. There may be a movement to oppose it. And I also feel that the pulling of the funding is ill-timed, in the sense that this was in mid-crisis, you don't do it. A stock taking should have happened later on. But when you do it mid-crisis, it can make the crisis worse. My speech is over. Over to others.
Oh,
To add to what Samrat said, do you know what the total budget of WHO is? It's $4.4 billion. Earth's population is 7.5 billion plus. So that translates to about 60 cents per person. So, Kanav,
yeah.
who has 40 rupees to save your health? Jaggi, 40 rupees for you every year. So they have only 40 rupees per human being to save the whole planet's health. They are in no position to actually save us from anything. What they do is use this money to speak in favor of the people who are paying them. So it's a bunch of people sitting there and giving guidelines to government to benefit the people who are actually funding them. That's all. They don't have any other role.
Correct. Those guidelines.
Yeah, and look at one simple thing, right? Now, they have an article, the FCTC has one thing called Article 5.3. That Article 5.3 is used against everyone, which means that we, as AVI, start speaking against the policy, against vaping, then they throw this Article 5.3 at us and say you are industry, therefore you don't have a voice. However, that Article 5.3 doesn't apply to its own member policy against vaping. Many of them, then they throw this Article 5.3 at us and say directly owned tobacco companies, or you don't have a voice. Including however, that Article 5.3 doesn't apply to its own member policy against uniform application of policy on their front. And why is that happening? Is because these countries are paying for their functioning. So it should not be that, because then you are just become, lapdogs or hitmen for some people, or funders basically.
Samrat, you've reached Article 5.3. That's way down. In the very first paragraph of FCTC, harm reduction is mentioned. The treaty based on the basis of which FCTC functions, that treaty, the very first paragraph mentions harm reduction. And they have been denying vaping throughout. And you can see that dichotomy, the way they have two different policies. In the advanced countries where they know European countries are not going to listen to them, there they are pro-regulation. But when it comes to Southeast Asia, they are pro-bans. How does the World Health Organization function like that? How can they have two different policies? Are we going back to the times when Europeans were superior to the rest of the world?
That's a question So, and on another note, we have a very interesting question. I'm so sorry, guys. We're going to interrupt this very serious discussion which was going on for a very important question. Amir Adil says, can you elaborate on traveling with vape e-liquids on domestic flights in India? Yes, you can't do it, bro. Sorry. Just not allowed to travel with vapes or juices in India. You're most welcome, yeah. Sorry, he's written it like that, so I had to read it like that. I hope I'm not on mute. Manish looks really upset with me.
No, I'm not. I'm reading.
No, you kind of stunned him to silence.
Yeah, I have to interrupt. When I see something interesting and out of the blue, I have to address it first. On that note, Neeta also wants to know what is our favorite setup. This is a question for all the non-medicals. Dr. Kevin, since you're a medical expert, you're not allowed to answer this question. I'm so sorry. We know you vape. We know you have a preference, but you cannot answer this one. But everybody else, quick, short. Jaggi, what's your favorite setup?
Mine's an MTL. I typically vape any one of the K funds. That's good with me.
I'm going to Google the definition of quick and like read it out for the others because Jaggi obviously doesn't get quick. Manish, what's your favorite device?
My favorite device is a Snow Wolf with profile RDA.
Right. Samrat?
So for me, vaping is very functional. It is for me a way.
Samrat, what is your favorite device?
So I haven't gotten used to big devices. I haven't
Samrat,
got used to big
answer the
fancy devices.
question.
For me, it should just work.
You can't get this guy to answer the question. Like, okay, so Samrat uses almost every device essentially as long as it works. Is that correct?
No, it's just low powered MTL devices.
Okay, Dhaval, what do you use?
So I'm currently using Crown 4. That is what. Okay, can you guys see now? Yeah.
Listen,
very beautiful.
Dhaval,
Yeah.
hello.
Yeah.
Rules, Macha. We made guidelines, Macha.
Sorry, man.
And Dr. Kevin, what's your favorite device? Though you're a medical professional.
It's basically one of the basic models. It's a MTL something Aspire.
Okay, so mostly I'm going to go with what Manish uses. I actually use a profile RDA on a Squonk mod, which is called Desire Rage. And somebody's asking, is it safe to mix 50 mg Nick salt, couple of drops, with free-based juices? I don't know this one. Jaggi, you have any insights on this?
Hey, yeah, I do. I wouldn't recommend doing 50 mg mix. I mean, I know people have this tendency to experiment and stuff like that. Please don't do this kinds of stuff. I mean, you need to have really low power devices. It's really not safe to try to fool around with mixed salts with freebase to get an extra buzz and stuff like that. Certainly not recommended. Don't try these things.
I read somewhere that above 24 or 30 could be a bit danger. I mean, just so my 2 cents.
Okay.
I wouldn't.
Do you want more insight on that? A little elaboration?
Yes, please go ahead.
See, we all know that 3 mg, 6 mg in a mod-based device, a tank-based device, or an RDA is safe. When we come to pods and Nick salts, we know that with pods and Nick salts, we can go to whatever 50 mg, 59 mg. But at the same time, we all know that pure Nick is a deadly poison. It's a hazardous substance. Pure nicotine is 1000 mg per ml. So 1000 mg is 100% a hazardous substance. It's a deadly poison. As the doctor will certify, dosage makes the poison. So we know that certain amount is safe. Let's say 50 is safe, 1000 is poison. Where in between is the line where it stops being a recreational use and starts becoming a poison? That there is ambiguity about that line, because obviously nobody can do human testing on where the poison is. The LD50, as they call it, is not well defined for nicotine. There is controversy there. We don't want to become guinea pigs. We don't want to do that experiment on ourselves. So stay within what is recommended. It's a replacement for smoking. Don't make it something else.
I really hope that answers your question. Do not experiment. Leave it for the pro scientists to experiment, test on weird things, declare it crap in the USA. A lot of people got sick, some people died, and vaping suffered globally. Am I right when I say that?
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, thank God.
absolutely.
Please,
Yeah, I
somebody
mean,
confirm. Like, I feel like I'm.
because of
Yeah.
Diwali, and people. I mean, a very quick one again. Kind of cut me after 1 minute. So,
Yep.
the global movement for THR, tobacco harm reduction, was doing fairly well, even though not so well in India. But globally, the needle was shifting because of Diwali. The impact globally has been tremendously negative. In Denmark, in most of Europe, in Latin America, in Southeast Asia, bans have started coming in because of Diwali. And again, it's trickery basically because it was THC vaping that caused Diwali. But there's dishonest people, the tobacco control prohibitionists jumped on it and started saying, "Arey, but vaping hai na." So it has caused a lot of destruction, and the vaping world is still recovering from it. So anything more goes wrong, then we are just looking at the cliff.
Yes, I agree, and we got to be very careful with how we do it. It's a beautiful time to be alive in for us because we finally have an alternative to smoking, something which can help us reduce the harm which cigarettes do while still keeping ourselves satisfied with the nicotine addiction which we have. And if we abuse it, we're going to take away this luxury which we have, this easier route, this less damaging route which we've come across from the future generations, which we should not, because nicotine addiction is not going to go away. So at least the less harmful path should be available for everyone. That's why we fight for it. That's why we want it made available. That's why we want everyone who is smoking to either quit completely or switch to a less harmful alternative, such as vaping. So let's not experiment too much with it.
Just one small thing I'd like to add to what he just said. I mean,
Yes.
contrary to what most people and especially the government thinks, I mean, see, any now nicotine, I mean, even if you wanted to stop smoking, the best way, apart from this one, is obviously if you are not going into nicotine substitutes or replacements, then the best way is cold turkey. The whole idea of dependence is maybe, let's say, around 30%. The remaining 70% of the dependence is psychological. And a significant aspect, and nicotine addresses only the physical dependence. The psychological dependence, the aspect of, inhale, because, when do you reach out for a cigarette? When you're actually tense, anxious or something, or you're feeling depressed. And the whole idea of inhaling something, taking a deep breath in and then blowing it out, it relaxes you, in addition to seeing the smoke coming out. And that is where vaping has a special role, because none of the other NRTs can take its part. And because thing is, people who are smoking, many people might actually like the aspect of the smoke coming out of their mouth, their nose, and god knows where else, but mouth and nose, basically they like the seeing that, and they won't be satisfied with just a chewing gum or a patch or whatever. I mean, like I said, because he said it's just a nicotine addiction. Apart from that, there's also the psychological aspect. That
Yes,
is
there
what I
is.
wanted to
I
say.
fully agree with you, actually. That's one of the real reasons I could never give up till I found vaping. Thank you for
That
that
I think
insight.
is true for most vapors. That is true in some way. I think all vapors try to quit smoking in different ways and fail. Which includes me, and I think 90% would be in that category.
Right. I'm going to be the party pooper today. I'm sorry, guys. We planned for a 1 hour long stream and we are hitting 1 hour 20 minutes already. Let's start working towards ending. Anyone has any important questions or anything which they want to bring up? Now is a good time to pop it. We're going to be closing the stream in about 12 more minutes, and those 12 minutes I plan to do stupid, senseless, pointless, fun things because it's fun advocacy, not just advocacy. Funvocacy. We're making up words. We're allowed to make up words. Juggy, make up some words. Juggy, unmute yourself before you start talking. My God, man.
I was doing dumb charades. You were supposed to guess what I was saying, man. What's wrong with you? We had
But we
worked
want
this
to see you
out.
play dumb charades. If you're playing dumb charades, you have to tell
Come
me.
on,
I
man.
give you a video.
You're so well. You're the one with the control panel.
Yes.
I'm supposed to do all this, and you're supposed to figure it out. No, but
Okay, guys, we're officially playing dumb charades with Juggy now. He's gonna act, and you guys have to guess what the is he doing.
okay.
That's Juggy's wife killing him after last
No,
time stream.
No, that's your smoke. You die. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, but come on, guys. One needs to look at it. When you look at vaping, it has indeed had it mimics the act of smoking, like Doc just said, closest as it can get, and that's what helps me. I mean, I tried patches, gums, aversion therapy.
Juggy, is this your definition of fun?
No,
I specified. We are
Exactly.
we are heading towards shutting
Exactly.
down. 10 minutes of fun.
What is happening to you,
Juggy was
Juggy?
like,
you guys made the fundamental flaw there. Okay, you guys said this needs to be family friendly. Okay.
No, don't overdo the family thing also.
I don't know, man. Okay, so it leads to the point where I'm like,
Just
okay, I
be
gotta wear a
yourself.
suit, I gotta wear a suit, I gotta be formal, what the hell,
Be yourself.
See, no,
Also,
that's
Manish,
water,
at the
okay?
end, I
That's
hope you
water,
will give
okay?
one Hindi recap of everything that was spoken.
Juggy, what happened to your helmet? Did the helmet not survive?
No. You also please observe the absolute pristine white background that I'm presenting myself in.
If you would biscuits, this needs to be answered. I'm sorry. Like I said, if I see something awkward, I have to address it and answer it instantly. If we were biscuits, which one would you be?
Which one would I be? I'd be the crackjack man.
I'd be the choco-filled ones. You know, the ones which are puffy from the center and big and like have a big belly.
All mushy inside.
Yes, all mushy, too much mushy. On the note of being mushy, if you guys, this is very serious for AVI's sake. If you or any of your friends are good-looking single women interested in talking to me, please contact me. I'm joking, sorry.
Yeah, you made it into a dating service.
Yeah.
You're going to get this
That requires skill.
We'll say
That's
save
why
this
he
clip.
showed the dumbbells.
Yeah, that's true. No, you're going to get these weird mails, man. With this Nigerian
I haven't given my email address. The joke's on you. They all have ABI's email address.
Okay, Kanam's on this side, and I'll share his email ID at the end of this.
Nope. We're looking for any more fun questions anyone has. We do not have any more fun questions. So on that note, guys, let's start winding up for the night. Let's start signing off and saying our goodbyes to everyone. We'd like to thank everyone.
I should repeat
Yeah, I think a quick recap of what we spoke in Hindi. One second, if any of the people watching want to leave suggestions or people you would like to see in future chats or anything of how we can make this better, then please feel free.
Yes, हिंदी में कहना भूल गया. अगर आप या आपके कोई भी दोस्त एक महिला है और आपको मुझसे बात करने का मन है तो कृपया अपनी डिटेल्स ईमेल करें.
हमारा email address है contact@vapeindia.org. contact@vapeindia.org.
That was in Hindi, is it?
Manish with the excellent translation there.
See, right now you're laughing in Telugu, right? Or Tamil. You're laughing in Tamil, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So similarly,
I thought Jaggi was Telugu.
Hindi.
Yeah, he's laughing in Telugu.
No, I'm
నేను
laughing in
ఒక్కసారిగా
Telugu.
అయిపోయిన మాట నేనేవి నేను.
Oh my God. Yeah, please do write to us and tell us what you would like added to this. If you want me gone, I'll be gone, no problem. No, but jokes aside, do write to us and tell us how we could improve content, what to add, and what extra you would like to see on this one. Yeah.
And please let us know who's your favorite host for this series. Out of all the options of hosts, we're talking about hosts only in Funvocacy. You have to tell us who's your favorite host.
Yeah, but the guy who kind of waves a dumbbell around doesn't qualify, right?
I'm the only host. That's the trick. It's a race between only one person.
Yeah, you're beside yourself. Yeah, no multiple choices. Anyway, guys, I think we are actually running out of stuff to say. We are being foolish now. Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Manish, do you want to give a Manish? Do you
sir.
want to give a Hindi recap of what was spoken, or maybe not? You decide.
I
what
don't
were you saying?
remember everything. So मैं यही बोलना चाहूंगा कि अगर आपने ये वीडियो देखा है, इसके हम लोग कुछ छोटे छोटे हिस्से अलग से YouTube में डालेंगे. वहां पर आप देख करके अगर आपको लगता है कि कोई ऐसा कुछ है जो आप ठीक से समझ नहीं पा रहे हैं और आप चाहते हैं कि उसका हिंदी अनुवाद हो, तो आप प्लीज हमें ईमेल करें. हम उस हिस्से का अनुवाद जरूर अलग से पोस्ट करेंगे. पूरे डिस्कशन को, पूरे ये जो बातचीत आज हमने की है 1.25 घंटे की, 1.5 घंटे की, इसको पूरा हिंदी में करना शायद संभव ना होगा, लेकिन जितना जरूरी होगा और जितना जो छोटी क्लिप्स हैं वो जरूर हम हिंदी में अनुवाद करके उसको हम पोस्ट कर सकते हैं. तो हमें इंतजार रहेगा आपके अनुरोध का. अगर आप चाहेंगे तो ही हम करेंगे, क्योंकि वो अलग से हमें एक और बार मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी उसके लिए. तो ये इस पे डिपेंड करता है, कि इस पे निर्भर करता है कि कितने लोग ये चाहते हैं. तो जरूर लिखें.
क्योंकि हम बहुत आलसी लोग हैं. अगर हमें एक्स्ट्रा मेहनत करनी पड़ती है, हम बहुत कंजूसी से करते हैं. Sorry, it was just there for me to jump in on.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kevin. That was really nice. I think some really good insights, and we should do something like this more often.
Yes, we'd love to have you again sometime. If it would be possible, we could probably coordinate and have you again to answer more questions and share your insights. It was very, very nice of you. It was lovely having you here. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Dr. Kevin, please say welcome. So we know you're not upset with us. My jokes.
It was fun being here. It was, I mean, I came online thinking it would be, basically one step away from being a nervous wreck, but the whole thing has been very relaxing and very jovial. And like I said, there were a lot of to the point questions also, which I hope I could answer.
Yes, you could. You did share a lot of insight, and we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We learned a lot from you. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks, Doc.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Be
you,
safe.
Dhaval. Don't log off like you normally log off, right? We're all going to say bye. I'm going to switch to a blank screen and everything. I'm going to play that AVI signing off video, and then I'm going to click end streaming button over here. So don't just vanish, but everyone wave, say goodbye. Cute and cuddly, guys. Cute and cuddly, remember.
Smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
Everybody sing that shit.